You're listening
to the CD Baby
CD Baby
DIY
Musicians
Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Cristina. Good morning.
Good morning. You're tired because you had something keeping you up all night, and it's not what people think.
No, it's a cat. Got a cat yesterday. Picked her up from the shelter, and to kind of monitor her exploring the apartment safely, I slept on the couch last night and just like woke up every couple hours to check on her. So yeah, I didn't really get the best sleep last night, so a little sleepy today.
Good old Gladys. Perfect cat name.
Thank you.
Honestly, great. I just like the name Gladys. It's giving librarian. It's giving like cat eye glasses. You should get cat eye glasses for your cat. Oh my God.
Heck yeah.
It's giving like she knits a sweater, you know?
Yeah. And
every
that's kind of her
quarter.
vibe too. She's a pretty like chill cat. She's not a kitten. She's like almost 5 years old at this point. So she's kind of like established her personality and everything. And yeah, she's just super lovey and cuddly and nice. Good cat.
I am always really jealous when people talk about their pets because I don't have any pets. And at a point for the last 2 years, I did have fish. Like I had a betta fish that lasted 2 years named Prince, rest in peace. And then I got 3 little like schooling fish shortly after Prince died. We had some snails too. And I guess maybe something was off in the tank, but we named them Larry David, Steve Carell, and Shirley MacLaine. And Larry David committed suicide.
I've heard that can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
He's
just
like the
jump out of
tiniest,
the bowl.
but it's not even a bowl. Like this is just what was really confusing. And so we had like, and I mean, I feel terrible because I feel like maybe just the pH was off or something in the tank, and it was just a different vibe than it was with Prince, who survived fine. But Larry David is the tiniest little schooling fish. Somehow figured out that there's a hole on the top of the tank, and that's where like the feeding hole is, but it's really really small. It's about the size of like a dime. So one morning I wake up and I'm like, where's Larry David? I don't see him in the tank. What's going on? I'm looking everywhere around it, I'm not seeing it, and I find him on the floor dead ovs, but he had jumped through the tiny little hole, and like, and all, of all of them, like Larry David would,
Spunky. It's giving like sad Finding Nemo vibes, like a sadder version of Finding Nemo. I'm sorry that happened.
Thanks. I don't have pets anymore, and yeah, that's one of these days. We really want to have a dog and a cat, but we just don't have the space and feel like it's like sort of inhumane to have a dog in just a 1-bedroom. But if you have a dog in a 1-bedroom with no yard, we don't judge you. It is. Yeah, anyway. Okay, speaking of, I like the segue. Are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of needing space to roam.
Very good.
Yeah. Today, we're tackling one of my favorite subjects on the podcast, touring. And Rachel, I'm going to give you the credit for this, for bringing this one up. This is my favorite subject because I did this for many years. I actually quit my job at CD Baby in the first time I had the job. And I was like, I'm never going to go back to a desk job ever again. And I'm going to go on the road and I'm going to be a rock star. And I really, really, truly believed. I mean, in that moment, I kind of felt like it, but I truly believed that was going to be the rest of my life. And then I did it. And then you quickly learn whether it is meant for you forever or not. And for me personally, I could have done it longer, but I don't think I ever want to do it again. And it's not for any of the reasons, like anything bad. It's just like, it is a lot of work. It's tiring. It's exhausting. You're in closed quarters with people that you may or may not get along with every day. It's exhausting mentally, physically, spiritually. I don't know. It's a lot, but it's also like one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And what we want to talk about today is sort of like how to stay alive physically, but also mentally well during that, because it is challenging. It can be, I had some really low days, and I'll tell some funny stories about that. But yeah.
Yeah, I had been kind of keeping this subject in my back pocket for a while. Like, I think I've actually thought of it in my first couple weeks at CD Baby, like a couple years ago. But I had it in my back pocket because I was like, I don't know if I can really talk about this that much because I've
Mhm.
never been on tour myself. However, you were wondering like, what can we talk about in the next pod? And I got to thinking about it, and I have tons of friends who've been on tour. I've heard lots of stories, and I've also like traveled a fair bit myself. And there's definitely some like overlap with just kind of traveling in general and staying well
Totally.
while out and about. But
Yeah.
I did have a question for you. So I know you went on like a really long tour. Would you ever
Mhm.
do like something shorter, like a month or a
Yeah.
couple weeks? Okay.
Well, every tour that I went on, like I toured for several years, but they would be like a month to 6 weeks out, and then you're home for like a month, and then you go back out for another month to 6 weeks. So
Sure.
that's part of it, right? Is like it's really hard to find your rhythm like in your
Hmm.
life when that's your life. And I fortunately, didn't have like a family, or it really teaches you a lot about yourself. It teaches you a lot about your limits as a person. I think now, if I were to tour, I probably would only want to go out for like a week at a time, maybe 2 weeks at a time, but definitely not that road dog indie tour life again,
Hmm.
because it was just a lot. But that doesn't mean that it's not something like absolutely everybody should do it. And I had the opportunity to not only tour the US, but I got to tour Europe several times. And Europe is like a whole other experience. I would go out to Europe for 6 weeks nonstop anytime. You're
I've
treated like
heard the crowds
royalty.
are really good. I've heard like the crowds are really good and like really appreciative and
Yeah.
just love live music. Maybe value it a little bit more than we do here in some ways. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. There is something to that. There's also like they give you money to tour in Europe, which is incredible. Like there's like all
Mhm.
these grants you can get. Not only that, every venue will give you. So what we're going to talk about today is mostly US based touring. It applies anywhere, um but I will say that there's a huge difference, because in Europe, they don't just give you 2 drink tickets and tell you to go F off. Like they they'll make you dinner, homemade, like somebody's grandma down the street made dinner, and it'll be like a feast for the senses, and there'll be like wine, and if you have a rider, like they will go to the T to get you every single thing on that rider, and they
Mm.
treat you like royalty, no matter how small your band is. And I've heard that from friends that toured coffee shop venues. Like they still in the back had a dinner waiting for you, hot meal. And so Europe is is a little, or they'll put you up. Our
Sure.
band, not a huge band, but they would put us up. Each band member had their own hotel room, which is cush. If
That's
you've ever
real
done
nice.
a
Yeah.
US tour, the venue does not put you up generally. So
Yeah. Sounds
you
like
get to
an
play
experience I'd love
castles.
to have too.
Yeah, oh, you will. You will
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so let's go ahead and dive in, because there's a lot to cover here. Mainly when we're talking about this, we wanted to sort of talk about the mental health, but also the physical health. And both of those go hand in hand with this first subject, which is sleep. You would be surprised how hard it is to get sleep on tour. Establishing some sort of like rhythm for yourself for sleep is really important. I know that sounds like the blanketest of statements, but oftentimes you're getting on the road at 6 in the morning, maybe even earlier, because you have to make it to the next town before sound check. And so you're waking up super duper early. You're going to a 5 o'clock sound check. Your show's not till 8 or whatever. Your set's not till 9. You're not done until 10:30. You got to load out. You got to find your way to a wherever you're staying that night. You're going to empty your van because you're not
Yes.
going to keep gear in the van. And I'm going to say that so many times today. And then by the time you're getting to sleep, it's like maybe 12, 1 a.m. And that's if you're doing it all without partying after, or without like hanging out with fans or all that. So oftentimes you can get to sleep so late, and you have to wake up at 5, 6 in the morning and do it all over again. And it's just that grind can get exhausting. So
Mhm.
finding sleep I became really good at sleeping in the van with headphones on, bringing a pillow, and having something over my eyes. I don't know why I never bought an eye mask in the entire time,
They're not
but
expensive.
I know, but I would always just put a t-shirt on my eyes. I don't know.
Sure.
Like, very easy to go on Amazon and get yourself a sleep mask if you can. And then also try to avoid drinking, like, period, but also drinking coffee or Red Bulls. I had one night in New York City where they had free Red Bull in the green room, and that was at the time in my 20s, that was my, like, Achilles heel. Is that the term?
Yeah,
My
I think so.
kryptonite?
Yeah.
I drank, like, 5 Red Bulls.
No.
Yeah. And maybe, like, a couple, like, vodka Red Bulls on top of that.
Sure.
'Cause I was like, "New York, ah!" And I was shaking until the next day. I didn't sleep that night, and yeah, it was awful, so don't ever do that. Just try to try to keep your caffeine consumption before the show, just not after the show if you can.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, have caffeine as, like, a crutch a bit just to, like, get
Mhm.
through everyday
Yeah,
life in general. I'm not that way. I can only have, like, a cup of coffee a day, otherwise I get super anxious, so
right.
even just imagining doing what you did that night, my heart starts beating, like, in an empathetic way.
I
Ouch.
mean, not only did it affect my sleep, but it also affected my choices because now
Mm,
I'm, like, hopped up. I'm like, "Okay, well, let's go out and, like, see New York," and yeah, you should totally do that, by the way, like, go see New York, go see the cities you're in, but, be smart about when you do that and if you have an early morning and all those things, but having some sort of, like, "Hey, everybody, at noon is my time to not drive, and I'm gonna be the one that's gonna take the nap at noon on the back seat or in the wherever safe place for you to lay down in the van." A mental space and a mental moment to just take time to yourself is very important. And then, drink so much water, y'all,
mhm.
you
Get
know?
all the water. Yeah, carry you yeah, in your notes here, you talked about carrying an actual water bottle. Very smart to do. Uh, filling it up whenever you have the opportunity, and then also just limiting the consumption of sugary drinks and alcohol because those can
Yeah.
actually contribute to the dehydration, and then you're thinking you're, like, getting hydration, but you're actually not. So yeah, tons and tons of water. You should, like, be peeing all the time, I think, honestly.
Yeah, you should, and your bandmates will be, like, really upset. You probably will be called the person that pees too much or whatever. That was definitely my case was, Christina has to go to the bathroom again. And yeah, I'm just gonna really quickly go back. I don't wanna
Okay.
shame anybody when it comes to drinking, because it's your party too, and it's your experience, and you know your limits. That being said, especially in the US, and again, even in the Europe where they're just giving you, like, whatever you want, um, booze is, like, sort of the center of all the places you're going to, and it is sort of the culture, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think that we're all starting to, as a society, recognize how much that's part of our culture and how that might not be, like, the healthiest part of our culture always,
Mhm.
but sometimes they don't even give you food, they just give you drinks, or
Yeah.
they don't even put water in the green room, they'll just put beer and things like that. So just keeping in mind what your limits are with that and recognizing that how effed up you are on
Yeah.
stage can also affect your performance and can really bum out your bandmates. Because I definitely had some nights where I had to, like, carry somebody to bed, and that's not fun.
No.
So, just, uh, on the subject of liquids,
Yes.
being aware that that is a huge part of the tour life, and I decided on one of my tours that I just wouldn't drink,
Mm.
and it was hard at first because if you're used to that before a show, like, maybe you take, your one drink ticket right before you get on stage for Liquid Courage or whatever. But
Mhm.
I was like, "You know what? I wanna push against that, and I wanna be able to find my courage without that." And it
Yeah.
was one of, like, the best things for me as a person, period, because I realized I have way more energy, I'm more clear, I remember my chords. I felt really, really good, about that decision, and then it really informed like the rest of my life, period. I realized I don't
Mm.
need this thing. So and if you are somebody who struggles with alcohol, there are resources. There are always meetings in every city that you go to. So look those up.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely also recommend finding a therapist if that's like within your means, like someone
Yeah.
to talk to, whether that's, once every couple weeks, once every week, just like in general, not even like talking about tour because like mental health
Yeah.
is super important. And like, yeah, just because something is free doesn't mean you should say yes to it.
Exactly. Like, would you eat chocolate cake every day? If somebody was
I
giving you a
might.
slice, maybe.
Did you
Um,
find any alternatives for like did you drink like sparkling water instead or did you just like have substitutions?
Not even healthier in any way, but I definitely had like a Diet Coke before going on
Sure.
stage. Not healthy. But it just kept my mind a little more focused, and it felt bubbly, and it was like my guilty dirty secret, or my dirty treat. But yeah, I mean, wow, that sounded so boomery of me. I had a Diet Coke,
It's my little treat.
my little treat, my little sinful treat. Uh, but yeah,
Anyway,
nutrition. These are obs things, but maybe not. When you're on the road, obviously, I mean, I'm sure you've been on road trips. You know how hard it is to find healthy
yeah.
food often. Yeah.
Yeah.
I toured with people of all food preferences, which can be really challenging. Like maybe you've got
Mhm.
one person who's gluten-free and one person that's a vegan and one person that's like a keto omnivore, whatever. Finding First of all, bring your own food to have
Mm.
around for snacks, because that will help you tremendously when you've got long stretches of road or flights or whatever. But so healthy, fresh fruits, vegetables, proteins, etc. Protein keeps you full longer, so they say. I'm not a dietitian, um,
Yeah, I usually
but
try to go for, like, mixed nuts or something if I'm,
yeah,
like I feel like I'm missing out on the protein, and those have, like, healthy fats too and just help you feel more full, and, I
yeah,
also wanted to endorse if anyone's ever, touring through the Midwest and your only option for food, like, is a gas station, I'm gonna endorse Quick Trip. That is the best gas station in the Midwest. They have tons of different options, a lot of, like, actual fruits and vegetables that are pretty fresh in, like, their, refrigerated section. And yeah, just tons of really good options, so Quick Trip for life.
honestly, the gas station stops are always sort of my favorite, because there's so many, especially in the US, so many weird ones. If you're looking for something that sort of satisfies everybody, just some of the things that we learned were like anywhere with a salad bar. Um, Chipotle is actually a great fast food option because you can build your own situation and it does satisfy all of the dietary preferences. Mongolian grills, because there's
Mm,
lots of veggie options, and once again, anything that you can sort of like build your own sitch.
eat well.
What Eat well. I mean, what would you put in your van cooler if it were you?
Um,
You said trail
well
mix.
yeah, more like mixed nuts. I don't really like raisins, which are in most trail mixes.
Sure.
So yeah, like cashews, almonds, stuff like that, peanuts. Uh, yeah, maybe like some like protein bars, something like that. It's like small. And if you're not able to get like that full meal, those can help
Mhm.
you feel more full. Uh, I love sparkling water too. Like
Yeah.
Spindrift is my go-to for liquids. But yeah, what else would you add?
I mean, sparkling water is always my go-to. I had one rule after a few tours where you're sitting around all day, like for a lot of it. And then even when you get to the venue, you're often sitting around waiting for techs to be done and then to do your sound check. And even then you're sitting around waiting for the rest of the band to check. And then after that, you're sitting around wait. So it's a lot of sitting and not a lot of movement. So I realized that eating chips all day in the van wasn't doing me any good. Like physically or mentally. So I had a no chips in the van for myself rule, which was
Mm,
restrictive, but also it's just like that's what I learned didn't work for me. So
sure.
I unfortunately had to swap out chips for or I guess crisps. Is that what we're calling? Is that what you say if you're in the UK?
Yeah.
Potato crisps for like trail mix and those sorts of things. But then again, okay, one more thing about
Yeah.
if you're in Europe, they're going to feed you well. So don't be worried about any of the above, because by the time you get to the venue, you're probably going to have a good meal, hot meal. One thing I will say is that if you do have like a rider, putting healthy options on the rider that you can grab and go with after the show is a real pro tip, because then you're not spending so much money. That stuff's just free. Put a veggie platter on there, put avocados on there, and then just grab that at the end of the night. So that's a pro tip if you don't want to spend money on
Very
tour.
smart.
Yeah, van snack. Maybe bring Tupperware with you if you know that they're going to make you a meal. And just like put yourself a little meal together for the next morning or something.
Yeah.
Then the next thing that we were going to chat about was exercising, which yeah, you're sitting around all day. So finding opportunities, like if everybody in the band has to go to the bathroom, no matter what, you have to do 30 jumping jacks when you get out of the car, or when you get before you get back in. Like everybody's got to do it. Sort of keeping each other active in that way. It can be fun, just gamifying it. Sometimes if you're staying in a hotel, there's a gym. You can also do stuff in your room. Like there's plenty of YouTube videos. Do some yoga, do some high intensity training or whatever. If you can't move your body in that way, there are so many YouTube videos on how to move your body in a way that is comfortable for you. And then going for my favorite thing was just like taking sneakers with me and going for like a run or a walk in whatever the town was that we were staying in the morning before loading or before leaving, or maybe between like sound check and the show, because there's often like a lot of time. And I loved that because you got to see the city or like see the town and get the vibe, and you learn more about it than if you're just sitting in the venue waiting for your show.
And also you get some alone time too with that, which I feel like for me, if I ever go on tour, when I go on tour someday, I'm gonna need that big time. I need that in like my everyday life. So getting away, having time to clear your thoughts, free of any band member distractions or anything, super valuable.
Honestly, let's just skip straight to that because
Yeah.
I could talk about that forever. Um, yes, because people's little habits will start to rub you the wrong way, like just the way they're eating, how they're negative, or maybe they're just they have really bad morning breath or morning
Smell.
mood
Yeah.
swings or whatever it is. If you're stuck in a van with them, if you're stuck in a tour with them for 2 weeks, 30 days, whatever, it's going to start grinding your gears, and that takes us to picking your battles and
Sure.
and prioritizing your stress reactors, because that was like the hardest lesson for me, was
Mhm.
not only learning how to self-regulate my own emotions. It sort of felt like, have you ever been to camp?
Yeah, uh-huh.
When you were at camp, did you feel like you were the whiniest, brattiest version of yourself?
I was not.
You weren't.
No, but I definitely experienced other kids that were like that. I think just
Yeah.
because they weren't used to being away from home, like, ever. Like, I spent a
Mhm.
lot of time with, like, my grandma growing up, like, in
Yeah.
the summers and stuff, so, like, I was like, "Yeah, this is fine for me," but, yeah, definitely saw that with some other kids.
I was really independent, but there was something about being in a setting with a whole new group of kids. I didn't know them and whatever, and this is how I felt on tour. I felt like this 12-year-old like I had reverted back to the worst version of myself, and I felt it on the first tour I went on. And
Mm.
at one point, a bandmate had to pull me aside and be like, "You're bumming us out." And I realized, "Oh, I'm the asshole. Great. Well, I gotta self-regulate." And I did. Immediately, I, like, realized I was really grateful that they pulled. I mean, not in the moment. I cried in a bathroom in, Fargo, in Target about it.
Oh, wow.
Just like, I miss my home, I miss my family, I miss my boyfriend, and, like, all these things. And then I realized, "Girl, you are on tour. You're getting paid to do this. You're out there doing the thing you've always wanted to do. Buckle up, get your shit together, and enjoy the ride." And once I did that, I was able to be a way better bandmate, and also just perform better and take in the moment, be in the moment. That means such a trite things to say, but be in the moment because you don't know when that is going to be over. And once it is over and it's going to happen like either that or by choice, whatever, once it is over, you might look back and think, I wish I hadn't wasted my time being such a jerk or being such a whiny little bee.
Or a
So
diva. Yeah.
yeah. And I know that this happens to people all over the place. I've heard of a lot of my friends have gone through experiences like that on the road. So yeah, but then also there's the other people. Like they can bring that out in you. You get in fights, picking fights about how the van gets loaded, or
Sure.
you're getting in fights about you smack your mouth too much when you eat. I mean, that was a real fight that I had with a bandmate. I was just like,
Oh boy.
so you have to pick your battles because that is such a petty thing when
Yeah.
you're stuck in a small, tight space. One thing that might help, I don't know if you've ever, maybe your band does something similar, but trying like a no judgment, we're just going to check in the morning. How's everyone's day? Like, how's your morning? Don't do it if you have like someone in your band who's really like a tired person in the morning. Don't try to pull that out of them
Sure.
because having like a no judgment check-in in the morning that's just like, okay, did anything happen last night that we need to talk about? And we're just going to talk about it. Try not to be defensive. Just try to get it out there. That maybe could help, or I could see it going both ways. I don't know.
I feel like that also ties into journaling too,
Mhm.
and not something I've like kind of learned about myself over the years is that I don't need to speak every thought that I have out into the universe, and
Amen.
perhaps the best course of action is to not say anything, consider whether or not something needs to be said, and then if it can be kept to yourself or expressed in another way, just journal about it. You know.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, uh, yeah. I have a memory of being somewhere. It was like one of those days where you're hot. I was hot. It was like the hottest day in France. My keyboard fuse blew went during sound check.
Oh
And
no.
I started freaking out, like, "What am I gonna do?"
Yeah.
I must not have had the right fuse because those things are different.
Right. Yeah.
And it blew, and I was tired. It was like peak tour, you know? It was a festival, an outdoor festival, and it was like 100 degrees, and like you said, like, sometimes you just gotta let it out on paper and not take it out on people.
Mhm.
So, I remember sitting and, like, furiously journaling about it, like, crying to myself, and I'm so glad that I did that separately from everybody else because it would have been a really dramatic thing, and the amazing thing is that when I came back after sound check thinking, "I don't know how I'm gonna play this show," I'm just gonna, like I had my main keyboard and then I had, like, a smaller synth, and I figured I'm just gonna use the microKORG, I guess, and just play everything on the tiny microKORG, and that's just how it's gonna be. I
Sure.
came back and the sound technicians had gone out and gotten a fuse and had already replaced it in my keyboard, and I
Wow.
cried tears of joy and relief and then was so grateful that I hadn't just, like, spewed all of that onto my band. The stress that's my stress, it's not their stress.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
That
journal.
weirdly reminds me, and not to go off in too much of a tangent, but, like, it actually reminds me a bit of emails, and stay with me here. So,
Okay.
like, um, sometimes a compulsive problem for me is I'll just, like, constantly checking my email, like, keeping track of every thread, every single thing that's being said, and,
Mhm.
I don't know if I can do only 2 checks a day. That's what this person I was reading, was recommending, like, once in the morning, once, like, kinda toward the end of your workday, uh, but you'll often find that you didn't have to jump into like putting out the fire mode, and if you give things some time, they might just kind of resolve themselves.
Totally. Yeah, if you get that email first thing in the morning and you think, "Oh my god, I'm gonna stress about having to answer this," and then yeah, by 3, they might have already solved their own problem.
Right, and you didn't have to stress out about it and jump in and try to fix everything yourself.
Absolutely. You don't have to control everything. That's
Yeah.
another, like, lesson here is that sometimes it's okay for you to take the back seat and to say, "I'm just I mean, this sounds so corny. I'm just along for the ride," because someone else is gonna take the wheel.
Jesus.
Jesus will be taking the wheel on this one. And such is life. I think that there are opportunities to just say, F it. I don't need to be in control of every little tiny detail. Sometimes fuses blow, and that's beyond my control in the moment. And I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. I will say at the end of that evening, I played maybe one of my favorite shows of all time. It was like somebody jumped on stage at one point and like danced with me. It's just a really fun show, and so you just got to let go, let go and let God. And then, there's like some certain stressors too. Budgeting money can be really stressful if you
Yeah.
don't have that set aside, or if you realize you're spending more of it on the road than you mean to. So sort of trying to keep a little bit of a budget for yourself. Like, I'm only going to spend $20 a day. And stuff like that, keeps the gamification from the monotony, like, of the daily grind sort of fun, because you have this little challenge for yourself. But it also keeps you in your budget. People get on your nerves. It is what it is. Even if you love them, even if they're your sister, they're your best friend, your mom, whatever. People get on your nerves, right? And we have our own ways of dealing with that, but we need to be always trying to be better about it. That is just what it is. One thing that I realized, that a game that we played was, okay, you get 60 seconds to just tell me everything that's bothering you. And then you're going to balance it out with 60 seconds, like literally timer on the clock, 60 seconds of all the things that are positive in your life. And that little exercise was obviously, it's gratitude, but it's also an opportunity to say the stuff that's bothering you, no judgment. And everybody took turns doing it, like, not every day, but whenever we felt like it, when we knew like you got something to get off your chest. And it was so helpful because you realize that the things that are bothering you, maybe they're not trivial, but they're not as big as you think they are, or people can also understand why you're in the space that you're in when they get to hear that. But then also you're balancing out with something positive, and that gives you an opportunity to turn your shit around,
Yeah, it can be hard to remember to be grateful for things
Mhm.
without like that prompt, and speaking it into the world to somebody else, and having to think through that process of like, yes, there absolutely are things to be grateful for in this process, even though, yes, these other things are happening too.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean this is a 60-second bitch fest about all the things that you hate about your bandmates. That's not the point of this, right? It could be like, I'm really frustrated with the dynamics today. I'm really frustrated with the fact that I haven't been able to go for a walk by myself. I'm really frustrated that I haven't had a healthy meal. I'm really frustrated that I haven't talked to my parents in 2 weeks. I'm, like, whatever. I'm frustrated that I have no money left. Like,
Yeah.
and then you balance that out with, we played a really, really great show last night. I felt really proud of that. I met 3 really awesome fans. I have so many clean socks that I get to go through this week. I don't have to do laundry, things like that. Just finding whatever the tiniest thing, and keeping that in focus alongside recognizing, okay, there are things I need to get off my chest, or that I just need, maybe a journal isn't cutting it. I just need other people
Yeah.
to understand where I'm coming from. So it's a fun game to play with anybody, but definitely with bandmates if you're stuck in a tube with them. I guess that takes us next to connecting with others, finding opportunities to connect with people, because it does get lonely. You do miss your routine if you had one at home. You miss your people. And like I said, like, sometimes you're on the road for a week, and sometimes you're on the road for longer, and you're coming home, and then you're only home for a second, and then you got to go back out. And that could be challenging, especially if you have something challenging waiting for you back home, or if you don't have anything waiting for you back. There's a lot of reasons why people get lonely on the road. That can lead to a lot of weird, destructive behavior on the road. So finding opportunities to connect with whoever grounds you, if it's your best friend, if it's your therapist, if it's your parents, if it's your partner, finding opportunities. I mean, we live in an era of like instant communication now. We have text, we have FaceTime, we have all these things. Connecting with your fans, even like get on live and do that so you can chat with people and keep them up to date on what you're doing day to day. Those sorts of things will help sort of remind you that you're not alone, because there is something about traveling that just feels very lonely, whether it's for work or tour or whatever. Like I just went on a 6-week sort of work travel tour in August through September.
Yeah, that was like last fall.
Yeah, for CD Baby. And I mean, I was just so grateful to be on this tour. I got to go to Europe. I got to go to Germany and Spain. And I saw you. We went to Miami, like all these awesome experiences. But I was so lonely, even though like there were coworkers around. At the end of the night, I was by myself and I just felt lonely. I felt, for the first time in a long time, I felt that sort of loneliness that I hadn't had in a long time. So yeah.
Yeah, that
It
was a lot of
happened.
travel for you. Like six weeks of nonstop travel is insane. And I remember, if I recall, you also got a little sick on that
Mhm.
trip too. So
Yeah.
that doesn't help anything either.
No, that doesn't help when you're lonely.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna let you take this away. Why is it important to connect with your fans after a show, Rachel?
Well, they came out, to see you on this tour, and they're kind of the whole reason that you're able to do and feel motivated to do what you're doing in the first place. And that like extra moment at the merch table or after the show, whatever, uh, even if it's just 30 seconds of saying hello and thank you for coming and letting them tell you how great you are, whatever,
Mhm.
uh, that can make a really big impression on a fan and
Yeah.
you know not to be too clinical about it, but like extend the life of that fan following your career and
Mhm.
caring about your music. Yeah, super super important. I would say, like, and again, I've never done this, but like uh after some shows that I've played not on tour, I haven't necessarily been in the mood to talk to people, but I
Mhm.
have push myself to do that anyway, because you really only have that short span of time to do
Yeah.
it. And who knows, it could really lift your mood. Even if you think you like, oh, I made so many mistakes during that show that like wasn't a
Mhm.
good one for me. Um, Chatting with people who are excited about your music helps a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm one of those people that I come off very extroverted because I can put that on. But at the end of the day, I am a little more introverted than people would think. And when I get on stage, that's a different person. That's a different version of myself. I can be big on stage, but then afterwards, having those interpersonal conversations does stress me out a little bit, knowing, "Oh, I just put myself out there." You're very vulnerable on stage. So
Mhm.
whether you hit the wrong note, even though no one will know, or whether
Yeah.
like tripped over your cable at one point or whatever, all these things that you get in your head about, and then you have to go out there and you have to go shake hands with people and put on a brave face. And I know that there's sort of always for me a moment of dread
Mhm.
after that I have to go, okay, now I got to go talk to people. But as soon as I do it, as soon as I practice it, practice being brave, practice putting on your social face, go talk to people, meet people. It's such an incredible opportunity because not only will you likely meet somebody who will be so grateful that you gave them your time, not that you're like the Queen of Egypt, but you like gave them your time and you connected with them. People need that in our lives, whether it's from a musician or from a fellow stranger. So
Mhm.
um, I know that there are people that I've met along the way that met me at one show, came back like the next tour and brought pictures that they had taken at that previous show. And they're like, will you sign this picture? And you're like,
Wow.
what? How did you from no? Yeah. And then have like kept up with my career along the way.
Mhm.
So things like that are so valuable. And also, you're on this journey specifically. That is the job. Like the job is to build relationships, it's to build audiences where you go. It's
Mhm.
not to just play a show, tell everyone to F off and move on. Like it is specifically to build communities. So that's part of the gig. You just have to like get yourself in that headspace that this is part of it and this is important for me to do, but then you'll recognize that it's also going to fuel you and feed your soul.
Mm.
Even if it's uncomfortable, it should feel uncomfortable. To
Yeah,
quote.
I wanna
Yeah.
recognize too that social anxiety is a thing that a lot
Yeah.
of people struggle with, myself included, uh, and yeah, it can really suck and be really, really
Mhm.
hard to deal with that and be, like, overanalyzing everything you
Mhm.
say and how you look and, like, "Oh, I'm so sweaty off of after getting off stage," and still focusing on whatever mistakes you made or whatever thing,
Yeah.
but, you know, you don't have to stand out there for an hour or anything.
No.
You can say like, "Hey, I'm gonna talk to like 5 people, and
Yeah.
then I'm gonna go to the bathroom," or
Yeah,
something,
or
or like take a
even
break.
listen, if you're having one of those days, because I know that no matter how extroverted you are, you might have one of those days, and no matter how socially uncomfortable you are, you might have more brave days, but there's always the opportunity to ask someone else to take the wheel and say, "Hey, do you mind standing at the merch table today? I will go out and I will meet one person, but I
Mhm,
can't do a crowd. Like I can't do a line of people coming and like that thing that gets really overwhelming. Do you mind taking that on today?" Maybe it's the guitar player, whatever. The like somebody else in the band can do it. Um, Alternate, that's okay, but just try to make sure that if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, you did a really great job tonight," to not just be like, "Cool, thanks, bye." Like try to have a conversation if you can.
mhm.
I know that that can again feel really overwhelming, but that is part of the gig. These are more or fun things to do to just sort of break up the day. So, like we said, it's pretty monotonous. You're going from place to place. Um, Venues start to look the same, and the routine of waking up early and the tired and the grog and all the negative stuff can get more pushed to the present or to the front sometimes. And again, we need to just keep finding ways to come back in. So maybe every day you take a minute and you meditate in the van. There's so many opportunities for that now, like online. You can just use an app,
Mhm.
use Calm or whatever, and take your 2 minutes. I mean, 2 minute deep breathing exercises are undervalued. I think they're
Agreed.
incredible.
Big time, big time.
Maybe it's journaling. I had a friend who's like lives his life on the road, and he recommended that you find an album that you've like never really given it enough attention and you get obsessed with that album on tour.
Mm,
So I tried it at the time I was going through a breakup. So I listened to Rumors and
nice.
I put it in my headphones and I listened to it every single day and I got obsessed. I had listened to Rumors before, but I hadn't like listened to Rumors before.
Mhm.
And I listened to it every day in headphones in the back of the van or whatever and just like had that moment to really get obsessed with it and learn everything I can about it and to listen to the way that the drums were my whatever, like, you just get obsessed with every little tiny detail. Remember, "Oh, yeah, that's the part where that guitar part comes in, and, well, that's a really interesting thing that they're doing." It's also research,
Mhm.
for your own creativity, so that was a really good piece of advice I got.
Do you ever listen to music and sort of, like, imagine that you're the main character in a movie? Because I do that all the
Yeah,
time. Like, I remember
of
growing
course.
up on, like, the bus in the morning, I would put on, or, like, friggin', Disney Mania stuff,
Mhm.
but, like,
Wow.
on my CD
Yeah.
player. Yeah, oh my god. I
Yeah.
was very cultured, but,
I love
and I
it.
would just, like, pretend I'd, like, stare out the window and be like, "Yeah, I'm the main character in this, like, moody movie," and it was really, like, mindful, and a
Yeah.
good way to start the day for me when I was growing up, so that's fun.
Yeah. I actually became I had obviously, I'm a musician, but I hadn't really given like full headphones listens to so many things because
Mm,
I had my shitty speakers or whatever. And it was actually through touring that I realized how important it is to listen to music the right way, what I think is the right way, which is
for sure.
either with headphones or with good speakers. I hadn't recognized that until I went on this journey where I had to have headphones on because you don't want to be the jerk that's like blasting it through your phone next to your bandmate who's trying to sleep. Um, and I got obsessed with, okay, this is what mixing is.
Sure.
This is all the work that someone put into this. I had no idea there were all these layers to this song. I had no idea like how much production went into this or how beautiful the space is in between the production, those things I hadn't paid attention to until I went on tour. And then it made me a better musician. So, but I also had main character energy where I would listen to something and look out the window and felt like I was in Garden State, just like tear.
It's raining, there's clouds, there's like a little bit of frost on the window, and it's like chilly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's fun.
That first Sylvan Esso album came out when I was on tour once, and there's a song on there about being on tour, and it's about like the wheels moving, and I remember listening to that and having main character energy for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, something I just thought of too is like, I don't know how often this happens to you, Cristina, but there are definitely moments in my life where I'm like, I actually don't want to listen to any music right now. Like I can't.
Oh yeah.
Because I can't I can't do that.
Your head's so noisy already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like audiobooks and podcasts, big time. Like before you go on tour, like because you never know what your internet situation is going to be. Downloading some audiobooks, getting some favorite podcast episodes ready to go. Because it's a lot of time just like sitting around.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody's listening to this while they're on tour right now.
Meta.
If you are, will you send us an email and let us
Please
know? The thing that brings you into yourself, because so much of being on tour is being a performer, being out into the world, having to interact with so many other people. Find that thing that brings you in, even when you're surrounded by everything around you. And then also, again, going out and finding some alone time is very important.
Should we talk about like what to pack? Like the
let's
kind
go
of
there.
hacks for packing list? You were talking about reading in the van, and like for me, unfortunately, that makes me really motion sick. I just like struggle with motion sickness in general. So yeah, Dramamine would be top of my list of like absolutely must bring. I always bring it on plane rides, everything. So yeah, whatever meds you need, like things prescribed or like to help you out.
First aid kit, ibuprofen. You're gonna need it. Liquid IV. Bandages, you never know who might need one. I sort of like to be the tour mom and have like extra things that someone else might need. So sort of putting together like a little bit of a package of maybe someone's going to need a tampon, like, I don't know.
Good for nosebleeds as well.
Tampons are great for nosebleeds. You heard it here first. Personal comfort items, like if you have a favorite blanket, that will save you on days where you really feel lonely or where you really need that comfort. Always bring a pillow. Also, just because sometimes hotels are gross and you need to bring your own pillow.
Check for bed bugs.
Check for bed bugs.
Every single time.
Have you ever had a bed bug experience?
No, but I've had, again, friends who went on tour and they didn't sleep in this hotel because of the bed bugs, but then they ended up having to drive the entire night because of that instead of sleeping. But they were like, we're not going to stay here,
We had one place like that and it wasn't bed bugs, but it was grosser than that. I'm just going to go really fast because we're running out of time, but Kansas, middle of nowhere, the smell of manure in the air. We get to this hotel. There are like gunshot holes in the ceiling. The bed had not been changed since somebody had used it to have sex in. There was like a dirty condom next to the bed. It was rough and there was no food in sight. So all we had was whatever was in the van. And we're sitting there like trying to just be like, okay, we're just going to be brave. We're just going to do this. It's fine. And then actually it was the driver who is the only male on our tour. No, I am not staying here. And we changed. We like went to the next town over and got a nicer hotel. And I was really grateful for him because we were all trying to be really brave.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, a humidifier? Like you can have little portable humidifiers. I guess it's one of those things where you don't know where you're going to be or how dry those climates can be. And if you're singing, it's really helpful to have something like that. People do get sick on the road all the time for obvious reasons. You're shaking hands, you're going from city to city, germs happen. So something like that. Hand sanitizer, face masks. If you're going into an area that you just don't, there's a lot of people and there's COVID's on the rise, whatever. You're going to be shaking a lot of hands. Wash those hands, folks.
Yes. Shower and wear deodorant for your own sake and for your band members' sake. But also, this is a good hack you wrote as well, baby wipes, because perhaps you're not always going to have a chance to take a real shower.
Yeah, I learned that camping, but yeah,
Yeah.
just like baby wipes because you might have a gross day and don't put other people through that. It's disgusting. And then also one thing I was gonna say is you don't need to bring like a million tour outfits. There's always laundromats somewhere. There's always washing your underwear in the hotel bathroom. And I know it sounds gross, but you've been there, you've done it. You really can fit a month-long tour in a small overhead suitcase. I've done it. It made me a better packer for the future. I still try to keep everything in a carry-on now, no matter how long the trip is. You don't need a ton of shoes. Like bring 1 to 2 pairs of stage shoes and then like comfortable shoe, 1 pair of comfortable shoes that you can wear in a van. You don't need to bring your entire wardrobe unless that's your whole thing, in which case go ahead, have your like suitcase full of tour clothes. But just know that it's not necessary. You really can't. I mean, I'm a lady and I have lots of accessories and I was able to figure out how to like really pare my life down into something small. So just sort of make a checklist of the things that you need to bring and then maybe start crossing off the things that you realize you don't need to bring.
And if you forget something, you can probably buy it too, like
Yeah.
a comb or a toothbrush or whatever.
Deodorant. Yeah.
Yep. Be kind everywhere you go. Don't be an entitled brat. Say thank you, clean up after yourself, and shake hands with your fans.
I like that you read that verbatim.
Because it's written really well and I love it. Yeah. Yeah, you should just be nice. Oh my gosh, be a good hang. I think so many of the admittedly like worst interpersonal situations in my life have come about because I was being selfish and
Mhm,
not thinking of others. If you're going to
mhm,
be spending so much time with these people for however many weeks, you got to put other people first, at least some of the time,
mhm.
for their sakes. But then, also, of course, protecting your peace in every way that you can. But uh, protecting your peace doesn't mean that you can't be kind.
Absolutely. And it's okay to acknowledge if you've had a bad day and you haven't been the best version of yourself. I think it's okay to apologize. I know it's really hard for a lot of us to do, but you have to be able to accept that maybe you're the jerk that day and that you owe everybody an apology. But being kind, it can be challenging if other people aren't being kind, but trying to
Mhm.
take the high road as much as possible, remembering that, this is a long trip and you need to have like the emotional storage for the whole thing. And then on top of that, like you're representing your band, you're representing yourself, and you're representing where you come from. So if you're playing shows internationally and you're from the US, there is a trope about us that we are entitled brats. Try not to feed into that trope, Like let's try to break those stereotypes. Be a better version than what that stereotype is. Clean up after yourself. Um Again, shake hand or whatever. If you don't want to shake hands, it's more metaphorical. You get what we're
Yeah,
saying.
the
But
idea.
yeah, try to be representative of the best version of yourself because that is what people remember. I'm sure we've all had memories of meeting our idols or meeting other musicians and thinking actually they were real jerks in real life, and you don't want that reputation. So, and be in the moment.
Mhm.
That's my final thing, is that again, one day the ride will stop and you don't want to look back and think, I wish I had done it differently. You might look back and think that, but you don't want that to be the overwhelming memory of that experience for yourself. Be in the
Mhm.
moment, be self aware, have fun,
Have fun.
and be safe.
Be safe. Make good choices. Uh, yeah, and I hope that anyone who's listening to this, who's going on tour this spring, summer, whenever in the future, hope you got something out of this. And yeah, prepare ahead. Uh, it's a whole thing. So take these strategies, run with them, be kind to yourself.
When are you going to go on tour, Rach?
Uh, I had some plans to maybe do something this spring. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. However, that is actually a goal of mine this year to maybe try to put something together. I know people in a lot of Midwest cities in like Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin.
Mhm.
So kind of like starting to plan like a big circle sort of
I
trip
love that
that I could
area.
like stay with people and play some cool venues. So yeah.
One thing that I should mention is that by the time this comes out, you may already be on your way, but Rachel will be at Folk Alliance in Kansas City.
I'll be arriving in Casey on the 21st of February. And I'm giving a talk on Saturday afternoon at 3:00 on short form video for forks and spoons for folk musicians. And I've been working really hard on it. So I hope that folks can come out. Even if you can't make the talk, if you see me in my redhead tall self, please say hello. I'd love to meet you.
I'm so excited for you. You're going to do great. And I hope that people come up and see you. And I also hope that you get to play a show while you're there and you can tell us about how that went.
Yeah, I'm going to play some of the private showcases. I've got one for sure booked, and I'm in talks for a couple of other ones. Those hotel room late at night. Some of them are in the rounds. Some of them are just solo kind of stuff. So really looking forward to that too.
Very cool. All right. Well, until next time, thanks everybody. And I hope that you have a fun, safe tour. Let us know if you are on tour, if you're about to go on tour, if any of these things resonated with you. Talk to you
Bye,
soon.
y'all. Thanks.
Bye.